New Year's Day is meant to be a beginning. For 10 families in America, it became the worst ending imaginable. 2016, Jacksonville, Florida. In the early minutes of January 1st, 2016, Jacksonville was still settling down from New Year's Eve. Police were dispatched to a residence in the Dinsmore neighborhood just after midnight. When officers arrived, they found Michael Daniels, a 41-year-old man, suffering from a gunshot wound outside his home. Emergency responders attempted life-saving measures and transported Daniels to the hospital. He was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. From the beginning, investigators noted that the scene did not suggest a random act of violence. There were no signs of forced entry, no indication of a robbery. Nothing taken. Police canvassed the area, interviewed witnesses, and began reconstructing Daniels' final hours. According to law enforcement statements, detectives quickly identified Edward Williams as a suspect. Authorities stated that Daniels had been involved in a relationship with Williams's former partner, and that this personal connection was central to the investigation. Police described the shooting as the result of a domestic-related dispute, not a spontaneous act. Investigators obtained warrants, gathered statements, and formally charged Williams in connection with Daniels' death. For Michael Daniels' family, the year 2016 did not begin with celebration. It began with police tapes surrounding their home and the realization that a personal conflict had followed someone into the new year. Case status: suspect identified and charged. 2017, Redmond area, Washington. By the time January 1st, 2017 arrived, a New Year's Eve party was still underway at an apartment complex near Redmond, Washington. The gathering was large. People were drinking. Music was playing loudly. At some point during the early morning hours, gunfire erupted. Adrian Anguiano, 20 years old, was shot in the neck. Emergency responders were called, but Anguiano died at the scene. Police immediately recognized the challenge ahead. The crime occurred during a crowded party. Dozens of people were present. Many left before officers arrived. Investigators conducted interviews, reviewed available surveillance footage, and appealed to the public for information. In official statements, police said that someone at the party likely witnessed the shooting or knows who fired the weapon. However, conflicting accounts and the chaotic nature of the celebration made the investigation difficult. Over time, detectives publicly renewed requests for tips, emphasizing that the case hinged on cooperation from those who had attended the party. As of the latest official updates referenced in reporting, no suspect had been charged. For Adrian Anguiano's family, New Year's Day marked the beginning of a long wait for answers. Case status: unsolved. 2018, Santa Barbara, California. Santa Barbara entered January 1st, 2018, like many coastal cities do, with celebrations winding down and streets beginning to clear. Shortly after midnight, police responded to reports of gunfire on West Victoria Street. Officers arrived to find two young men suffering from gunshot wounds. Jesus Armando Reyes, 24 years old, was pronounced dead at the scene. A second victim survived and was transported for medical treatment. Investigators secured the area and began collecting evidence, including shell casings and witness statements. Police stated early on that the shooting appeared targeted, not random. Over the following weeks, detectives identified suspects and announced arrests related to Reyes's killing. As the case moved through the legal system, court proceedings revealed the complexity behind the investigation. Prosecutors presented evidence and testimony. Defense attorneys challenged witness credibility and intent. Years later, reporting on the case showed that the legal outcome did not fully align with public expectations of accountability. The case became an example of a difficult reality in criminal justice. Knowing what happened does not always guarantee a result that feels complete. For the Reyes family, January 1st became a permanent reminder that even well-lit streets and familiar neighborhoods can turn deadly. Case status: suspects arrested, Case adjudicated in court. 2019. Charlotte, North Carolina. As January 1, 2019 moved deeper into the early morning hours, police in Charlotte received a call that would mark the city's first homicide of the year. Just before 3 a.m., officers were dispatched to a residential area in northeast Charlotte. When they arrived, they found Carnes Ferdinand Poindexter, a man in his early 50s, suffering from gunshot wounds. Investigators later stated that Poindexter had been shot in the street, not inside his home. Despite his injuries, police believe he attempted to get away. Poindexter ran, not far. He reached the front porch of his house. There, he collapsed. Emergency responders attempted to provide aid, but Poindexter was pronounced dead at the scene. The location mattered. A front porch is typically a place of safety. It represents home, the end of the night. In this case, it became the final point in the timeline. Charlotte-Mecklenburg police began canvassing the neighborhood, collecting statements from nearby residents and reviewing any available surveillance footage. Detectives stated that the shooting did not appear random. Within days, authorities identified a suspect connected to the incident. An arrest followed, and charges were filed in connection with Poindexter's death. For investigators, the case moved forward quickly. For Poindexter's family, the year 2019 began not with resolutions, but with funeral arrangements. Case status: suspect arrested and charged. 2020, Sacramento, California. New Year's Day 2020 began inside a hotel in Sacramento, California. A party was underway at a Ramada Inn where guests gathered to continue New Year's celebrations. According to police and later court documents, tensions escalated inside the hotel during the early hours of January 1st. At some point, gunfire broke out. 23-year-old Hubert Calamie was struck by gunfire. Another individual was also wounded. Emergency responders were called, and Calamie was pronounced dead from his injuries. From the start, investigators believed the shooting was not a random act of violence. Police statements and later prosecutorial filings described the incident as gang-related, tied to ongoing conflicts rather than a spontaneous dispute at the party. Detectives worked through witness statements, hotel surveillance footage, and forensic evidence collected at the scene. The investigation did not resolve quickly. Years passed. Eventually, the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office announced that 2 suspects had been convicted in connection with Calamie's murder. Prosecutors detailed how the shooting unfolded inside the hotel and how the suspects were identified and linked to the crime. The case highlighted a recurring reality for law enforcement. Hotels feel anonymous. People assume they can disappear into them. But cameras, witnesses, and time often tell a different story. For Hubert Calamie's family, January 1st became a date forever tied to loss, not celebration. Case status: suspects convicted. 2021. Rockford, Illinois. By the morning of January 1st, 2021, most New Year's Eve celebrations had ended. In Rockford, Illinois, violence was still unfolding. At approximately 6:25 a.m., police responded to reports of a shooting near the intersection of Brown Avenue and Church Street. Officers arrived to find Herman Bowser suffering from gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead shortly afterward. As the investigation progressed, authorities released details that painted a clearer picture of what had happened. According to prosecutors and police reports, the shooting followed a vehicle chase that moved through several city streets. Surveillance footage captured parts of the pursuit. Investigators stated that gunfire was exchanged before Bowser's vehicle ultimately crashed at the intersection. This was not a brief encounter. It unfolded over time. Detectives reviewed video footage frame by frame, reconstructed the route of the chase, and interviewed witnesses who had been awake early on New Year's morning. Charges were eventually filed in connection with the shooting. The case underscored a reality that police know well. Violence doesn't always stop when the fireworks end. Sometimes it waits until the streets are empty enough to move unnoticed. For Herman Bowser's family, the new year began with police knocking on their door. Case status: suspect charged. 2022, Sarasota, Florida. As January 1st, 2022 began, Sarasota police officers were already deployed downtown. New Year's Eve celebrations had drawn large crowds to the city's entertainment district, and officers were assigned to manage traffic, alcohol-related disturbances, and crowd safety. Just before 1:45 a.m., a call came in reporting a shooting near the 1400 block of Main Street. Officers arrived to find a victim who had been shot following a confrontation outside a business. Emergency responders transported the victim to the hospital, where the victim later died. From the beginning, investigators stated that the shooting followed an argument that escalated quickly. Unlike many New Year's Day cases, this scene had a critical advantage: cameras. Downtown Sarasota was covered by both business security cameras and city surveillance. Investigators reviewed footage showing movements before and after the shooting, helping them identify a suspect. Police arrested LaToya Johnson, age 37, in connection with the homicide. Authorities stated that video evidence played a significant role in the arrest, allowing detectives to reconstruct the timeline with unusual clarity. The case illustrated a pattern law enforcement warns about every year: crowds, alcohol, tempers that flare faster than people expect. On New Year's Day, arguments that might otherwise end with words can turn deadly in seconds. Case status: suspect arrested and charged. 2023, Baltimore, Maryland. New Year's Day, 2023, unfolded quietly in East Baltimore, until gunfire shattered that calm. Police responded to reports of a shooting involving multiple victims. Among them was Deasia Garrison, a 17-year-old girl. She was rushed to the hospital, but doctors were unable to save her. The case drew immediate attention from both police and the community.
Its first murder of the new year. 17-year-old Deasia Garrison was shot in a double shooting on North Glover Street just before 3:30 a.m. That was on New Year's Day. She died at the hospital. A 31-year-old man was also shot, but he should survive. Police are searching for suspects and a motive. About 90 minutes earlier, a man and woman were abducted from the South Baltimore neighborhood of Riverside. They were walking near the intersection of Riverside Avenue and East Cross Street when three armed men came up and ordered them into a car. The woman did manage to escape by jumping from the vehicle and running away. The man was unable to get out of the sedan, but was located a short time later. Three suspects are now in custody.
Detectives gathered witness statements, reviewed surveillance footage, and traced the movements of those involved. Police arrested Andre Bailey, identifying him as the suspect responsible for the shooting. Months later, Bailey entered a guilty plea and was sentenced in connection with the case. 17 years old, an age associated with beginnings. For Deasia Garrison's family, the first day of the year marked an ending instead. Case status: suspect pleaded guilty and sentenced. 2024, Buffalo, New York. At approximately 3:23 a.m. on January 1st, 2024, Buffalo police were dispatched to an intersection near Main Street and Merrimack Street. Officers arrived to find two victims who had been shot. One of them was Rashad Brown, just 18 years old. Brown was transported to the hospital, where he later died from his injuries. Investigators determined that the shooting occurred during a brief encounter at the intersection. Shell casings were recovered, and detectives canvassed nearby homes and businesses for video footage. Prosecutors later released details stating that the suspect had fired toward both victims before fleeing the scene. The case progressed through the court system, and authorities later announced a guilty plea. The location of the crime stood out: an intersection, a place people cross without thinking. For one family, it became a permanent landmark of loss. Case status: suspect pleaded guilty. 2025. Birmingham, Alabama. As January 1st, 2025 began, Birmingham police were dispatched to reports of gunfire near Graymont Avenue and Center Street. When officers arrived, they found Nathaniel Liddell Young suffering from gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead at the scene. A second victim was also injured during the incident. According to police statements, the situation escalated further when the suspect fired toward a police K-9 officer during the response. Investigators secured the area, collected evidence, and launched a manhunt. Authorities later announced that a suspect had been charged, followed by the identification of an additional suspect connected to the shooting. The case underscored the danger faced not only by victims, but by responding officers. By the first day of 2025, the pattern seen throughout the decade was undeniable. Different cities, different circumstances, different motives. Same day. Case status, suspects charged. 10 New Year's days. 10 homicide investigations. 10 moments when the calendar changed, but lives did not reset.